Hi. In today's video, I'll be telling you about my toys. I'll be telling you about symbolism from the past and about my letter to Santa. So, if that's something that interests you, then stay tuned. So, yet again, when I was a little girl, I wrote a letter to Santa and I asked Santa explicitly to give me the real monkey. And I didn't get a real monkey, but I got a toy monkey. And, that toy got a name Cheetah because we used to watch a lot of Western films during that time, a lot of cowboys and horses and monkeys. And even, when I think of it, we used to have a lot of photos on the carriage with two horses, and, there would be entire family sitting on the carriage, and there would be monkeys too, like real monkeys on those photos. So I don't think it was accidental either, as with everything. There's a lot of deliberate action when it comes to gypsy people. But the reason why I tell you so is because I have seen the Teletubbies, which supposedly are bears, but they actually are bears that resemble very much monkeys when you look at their faces. So we all know what monkeys do. Monkeys copy us, right? And, monkey not only copy what you do, but monkey, that particular monkey that I had got a name Cheetah. And, it was maybe a year ago that I came across the book of Armand McGill, who is a famous hypnotist. And he has written the book Hypnotism and Mysticism of India, where he explicitly tells you the activities that you could imply to start working with your energy and start practice being magician. And a lot of these exercises are connected with breath work, with meditation, but giving you explicit numbers like inhale for the in count of 6, keep your nose closed for 3, and exhale with another nostril for the in count of 6 again, right? And it's interesting for me because in Armand McGill's book, I came across the expression called cheetah, and that states for cluttered mind. And he talks about the fact that, on average, people have a lot of thoughts in their minds, and it's because they do not meditate. And with meditation, what happens is that the number of thoughts in your mind start to be reduced, and you ultimately become more quiet and more calm. That's one of the very first steps to actually have more control over your mind, and one of the very first steps to start developing your extrasensory perception and some energy work too. So this connection, that my monkey was called Cheetah, and Cheetah is a cluttered mind. And then even on YouTube, I came across the TED Talk that would talk about, this monkey mind. So those thoughts, leading you in this direction, and your mind being, not at ease. So it's because you don't meditate. And you can eliminate that and control that, have more control over that with meditation, with breath practice technique. Okay, so yeah, the very first thing we associate with monkeys, and the thing that monkeys actually do, they reflect what we do. And monkeys are also associated with Africa. So, in my life, I had a lot of monkeys, but my very main monkey was, I was monkeying her too, I can't deny. So my sister would just go to high school with fine arts, and I wasn't allowed to do so. And then I wanted to study, so to say, photography, because I had millions of ideas what to study, unfortunately. So when I wanted to study photography, she didn't want to borrow me her camera. She started to learn to use Photoshop all of a sudden. And when I started to study English philology, she enrolled on a course of English language. And when I was analyzing my MA and I wrote about vulgar tone and vocabulary surrounding the word poo and shit, then she gave a speech of hatred in one of her webinars and so on. So, um, when I wanted to have permanent eyebrows so that I could just wake up and not have to think about my eyebrows, that you have to make them, then she did permanent eyebrows. When I wanted to have a tattoo, then sisters would gather money to give that particular sister who is monkeying me the most to gather money for her tattoo for birthday. So she got the tattoo first. When I was aging and had really a few issues with that, then and when my beautician refused me a youth procedure, she would all the time be at the beautician and she would stand in front of me, where I could see that she has already left the beautician's office. And she would even emphasize that she looked just like me or even younger than me. She would explicitly say that. So, there was more. And I was monkeying her too. I was copying her too. And I wanted to be like her too. So it's not like only her. But, and she wasn't the only one. But because my second sister did that too, I even wanted to start learning to make my own clothes. So she enrolled on a course and started to learn that. And I wanted to have my sewing machine, Singer. So she bought such a machine for her daughter. And I was thinking of, I was learning about memory and so on. And the ginkgo biloba, a special tree that's good for enhancing your memory. So she planted such a tree in her own garden. And, I wanted to get blueberries from the mountains. So my provider of blueberries told me he's got no more of such blueberries, only American blueberries. And she had all the time blueberries when I was thinking of about blueberries. When I was thinking about the sun protection, then all of a sudden she starts to use the sun protection and had children too. So just there was more. Sure thing, there was more in, and I had many more monkeys in my life. So I'm telling you this because I asked for this monkey, and it was an ongoing process. Like, wow, I mean, come on. And at some moment in time, you just have to say, you know what? I talked to a cousin, and I don't notice in there any ambition or any direction into going and being a student and going and studying something. But as I talked about my plans, she's like, oh, I want to study too. Yeah. And it often happened to me that people would just say something that would not be true. It's not even their interest. They just do something so that you would think they copy you. But that's the entire point. And there's nothing more, there's no depth in it. There's no real interest behind it. So that's fine. And my second toy was a dragon. I was a little girl and I had such a puppet from Krakow, which was attached on the strings, and you could just manipulate it like this, and it was on those strings moving its legs, and it would fall down all the time and fall down. So I had to ask my sister to fix it. And that was interesting to me because one of my sisters took me to Krakow to go and sight, and we went there with our cousin and her husband too. And we saw the dragon in front of the Babel castle, and we had photos from with that dragon. We also saw a castle and king's chambers. And years later, not so long ago, I bought this dragon, and this dragon was also in one of the videos when I said that, uh, when I basically made a moron out of myself. Um, and the dragon is actually also one of the names I used when I was thinking about the boss that I liked. So, um, I'm not sure what else the dragon stands for. Probably, I'm not sure. Yeah, but there was more acting out in the past, the future, because we had a tower with Aladdin, and I never saw Aladdin on TV. We never borrowed the cassette with Aladdin, so I don't remember watching that tale. But we had the tower with Aladdin, and I remember sitting in front of the tower on the balcony and drawing that. Um, Aladdin, Jasmina, and Jean. And many years later, 30 years later, my sister got trousers called Aladdin's. And also in Holland, I was searching for the same trousers like Aladdin's, like Jasmina had. And before going to London, I had a session, a marathon with Disney tales. And I was sitting and watching the tales because I wanted to have a mental break from this all, because when you start, discovering how many people around you acted out, they were just pretending to be your friends. And when you start understanding the historical truth and what happened with, a lot of the people during the Second World War, so it was all overwhelming. And I wanted to have a break, a mental break from this all, and I wanted to keep my mind busy with something. I started to watch Disney tales, and I watched Aladdin too, just before going to London. And even at the airport, when I was coming back home, I could hear people talking about Aladdin. Not to mention that, the entire airport was like so stuffed with people. And that the boy who came to give me a visit and who claimed to be Mikołaj Lewandowski was actually an Arabic boy. And I saw him in London too at the airport. So, yeah, we could say that, a lot of the times I was followed by Arabic people, by gypsy people, by other people too, sure thing. Because the occultists are in each and every culture out there. But it's most of the time I was trying to, protect myself from it with an umbrella and with sunglasses. And then I would just have the sights, the views, the images where I just could see a lot of people, a lot of dark-skinned people. But I was trying to block that image a lot of the times. So just the impression of the crowd was there for sure. And yeah. And that particular story, of course, is a longer story, but I show you how it, it was all checked out and acted out in my Akashic records back then. Because even back then, I used to eat bread, and I would eat the middle of the bread, and then I would leave the skin and throw it behind the bed. And I have no idea what did I do such a thing. I know that, I didn't want to eat the skin of the bed, but that's okay. But why didn't I tell my mom? Why did I throw it away? And my mom knew it anyway, but she pretended she didn't. And after a month, she would just take out that food. And when being an adult woman, 32, 33 years old, I was just, doing the same. I was fasting before going to London, and I was throwing away the food, but just not behind the bed this time. And I acted out, also, jumping out of the stairs. I was chased by my sister, and I was jumping out of the stairs because she was chasing me. I was running away, and when I was jumping, she caught my hair, and I was hanging for a short minute, a few seconds. I was hanging like that. The thing is, I was down the stairs, and she was up the stairs, and years later, I believe to just make me look guilty, she said that, she got so angry that she felt like, pushing someone off the stairs, which is not true. She just wanted to make me feel certain way. And when she said that, of course, I believed it. Now I don't. And the dwarfs. I watched Snow White we on TV because we borrowed the cassettes, and I could see Snow White on TV. And I even had a tiny dwarf because I had a dwarf with pink hair, and somebody else at home had a dwarf with green hair. And my neighbor asked me to swap the dwarfs. She asked me to give her my dwarf, and she would give me a different one at night. And I was small, and I was naive, and I believed her, and she basically stole my dwarf. And in a story with Snow White, there is this witch who comes after Snow White, and she brings her an apple, and that apple puts her into a long sleep. So before going to London, I was fasting for a long time. That when I was sitting in front of the Buckingham Palace, I had an apple, and I had an apple, and I felt guilty about the fact that I broke the fast because I believed that the fast would help me know better. Fast would help me develop my extrasensory perception. And then when I got back home, I learned that something happened in Israel. And after some time, I also find my diploma depicting Snow White and the dwarfs. And the date would say 26th of May. So on the 26th, I was coming back from London, and on the 26th, if the information is correct, and on the 26th, there were bad events in Israel, which is the longer and more complex story itself. But I'm just showing you the links to that story from my childhood. From the very remote past. And then I found even more references than that, because the link, one of the things that led me in the direction to the story of Jewish people and the history of Jewish people was also the pig. The fact that when writing my MA, I was into coming across anecdotes and funny stories related to pigs, and I was even wondering if I shouldn't change the topic of my MA into pigs. Not to mention that the title of my book is Piglet, right? So when I was a little girl, I had my piggy bank, and that was a pink piggy bank, and my sister had a green piggy bank. And sure thing, I played with those piggy banks with my cousin, and they were super pigs, and they could fly, and we would attach them to the string and fill them with water, and and yeah, we played with those, which yet comes back as a symbol, as a piggy bank, as a story in one of the language schools I taught in. And the story talks about children finding coins, but going right away shopping with those coins. And as if for me, the missing element in that story about the piggy bank is the fact that those children don't ask if they could take those coins. Don't ask whose coins are they, and they don't wait with the money. They just immediately go shopping, which is the thing actually we don't want to do, right? We want to have different habits, and we should teach children to have those habits when they are children, right? I think. But okay. And there was one more reference, but this is when I was already much older. So my brother's girlfriend had a daughter named Amelka, and everybody around called her Melka. And and Amelia is the name of my course, and that's my hashtag, like Amelia, because I was thinking of going through all those sounds that we make, like oh, and so on, which is um, which can be the sound of amazement, like so great, oh yeah, but it's also I wanted to have something that would refer to those sounds people make when when being intimate with other people, because it's a course about it speaks a lot about relations, speaks about a lot of sexual abuse, and speaks a lot about identities of people who were sexually abused. It's also about language, and it's also about experience. It's about films, references from films, books, songs, and so on. So therefore, there is this sound in Amelia. Yeah, it's the name of a woman. So when they actually use those words, Melka, that really brings in mind it brings in mind the name of my course. Okay, so yeah, I believe in a very big shortcut, today we talked about monkeys, dragons, and Aladdin's pigs and dwarfs. Okay, so if you are curious about other symbols, if you're curious about the events from my book Piglet, and if you want to get a free PDF of my book Piglet, drop me a line at elkinga788@gmail.com. And if you want to check out my course, Amelia, click the link in the description of this film. You'll find all the info there, and on my website and my Facebook and Instagram accounts. So if you like this video, like, share, and subscribe. And thanks for watching.